All right, we're back another week on the Watch Dawgs on our Black Media Network. I'm Robert Bryant, and I'm here with my Jackson State University t-shirt on. Go Jackson State. Shout out to all of our HBCUs. And we have two of our new co-hosts. So who are you two? Carlton and then Shantae.
Well, I'm Carlton Carter, of course. And that's all I feel like saying for right now.
Okay. And Miss Shantae, the lady of Atlanta. You're muted. See, you just messed up my whole intro.
No, I did. I feel like saying shouts out to Morehouse School of Medicine, my HBCU,
All
because
right.
today is my last day for my teaching certification program to
All
be able
right.
to teach undergrad. And today's my last master's program class due date before interning, and then I'm done.
That's right. That is awesome.
HBCUs.
That's awesome. We are so excited for you, and the best is yet to come. And it's interesting you start on that note, Shantae, because I think our topic today is, can we be a community again? And I think you and you and I talked about it separately. Carlton and I talked about it separately, but I want you to jump us off today, Shantae, and Carlton definitely jump in and talk about how you got to that topic, and what do you mean by can we be a community again?
Well, this isn't quite how I got to the topic, but how I got to mute with coming on here was I was on my phone and I saw that Lil Boosie had a $100,000 bail bond because of him being found on a live with a gun. And I just think it's absurd. Like I think with the censoring of music and I understand drill and this isn't necessarily the topic, but I'm gonna get there. Just with everything. Like, how do we get to a community again? How do we get to where it's not where, like, how do we get to self-love? How do we get to community love? How do we get to loving being Black? How do we get to all of that again? Because when I was growing up, when we were growing up, there was something about the culture that just has certain things unacceptable. Like, why is someone, and I know that times have changed some with social media and things like that, but how can someone be facing all of these years in prison over a gun that was seen on a computer, on a live, and they don't know if it was a real gun, fake gun? They didn't like the lyrics to Wipe Me Down. So, and I only use that as an example because the music could be so much worse than Wipe Me Down. And how do we stop projecting that it's okay and it's cool to always carry guns? Like, how do we get to the point where gun violence isn't just about Black on Black crime? It's also about police gun violence. You know, Jimmy Hill and Jimmy Atchison. Just the all of it. Like, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of us not being community. I'm tired of just the many, like, just the injustice, and I'd like to see community.
But I'm gonna add to your topic about what you said about the gun violence thing, and it was a statement that somebody said, and I thought it was a very valid statement. What is one thing that usually happens when the police step up and like with these police killings and stuff like that, that makes them prosecute the person who did it to the highest extent? And what it is insurance. The one thing that I've learned about the Black community is that the Black community does not carry insurance. Because I told somebody after 2019 when it was GoFundMe, don't send me not another GoFundMe because I help you bury nobody, better get some insurance.
That's true. That's a good point. I've heard that someone's made that statement before, saying that when you have insurance, you're less likely to be a victim of police brutality. I've heard that before.
Wow. Okay. Help us. That's an interesting topic. It's so interesting, Carlton. I had a constituent call me and who is really concerned about insurance in the state and a number of things involving insurance and how it has been a scam and just a takeover on price and in Georgia, especially, and how it impacts Savannah. So, Carlton, help me unpack that a little more. What do you mean by just insurance, so our viewers can understand your point of view?
Insurance does not make money by spending out money. They make money by you continuously paying and we not having to do it. But the fact of the matter is, when I have to pay out a very large insurance sum because I like to say, like I'm saying, keep police violence, a police officer shot. It's not necessarily the people who stand like the police chief or those who stand behind him. It's the insurance company's lawyers who are now coming after them and say, hey, we upset because we had to shell out money because of something that your person did.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the other side of that, though, our prisons own people every day and insure them too. And unless you're killed in prison, in the process of committing a crime, it's going to pay out. So that's something else too that people don't know. So if you come shank me, as long as I wasn't trying to shank you, they're going to pay out on me. Very few not every insurance provider covers prisoners or inmates or justice involved individuals, but that's the proper terminology, justice involved individuals. But they do insure. Prisons insure you're bonded and you're insured. You're property of the prison. You're property of the state.
Yeah, right. It's called free labor.
Well, that's a whole different topic. That's the 13th Amendment.
I know, but
Alabama was able to get it involuntary servitude and slavery taken out of the language. Well,
I mean, here's the thing. Talk about being a community again. It's one of the reasons why I'm very big on our youth. You all, it's no secret I'm running for city council, and I believe in the fact that we've got to put more money into our youth programs and less money to make sure we got bricks on Broadway. It makes no sense to me that a city who has a serious issue with youth development when it comes to Black children, and a serious issue with crime, as we saw the other night, another person getting killed on Abercorn, that we will spend millions of dollars to beautify stuff for tourism, the tourism industry, but we won't take the time to spend millions of dollars to make sure our children that look like us are successful. That's a problem, especially when we got a city council and a mayor that looks like us. And so what we've got to do a better job of is people like ourselves to take young brothers aside and mentor them, take young sisters aside and say, you don't have to do these things. It's one of the reasons why I'm really big on ATR and our Black media. Julius Hall takes his time to mentor a number of children, right? One who I met the other day and helps us with the shows. And we got to show our young people that there's more to this life than the streets. I get it. I grew up in a privileged household. I get it. But the problem is we disproportionately have too many of our young people who don't have the privileges that I have. But I understand that privilege I live, that we've got to create that in a different way for these young people. So talk about community development. It starts with when we bring a child into this world, a Black child into this world. That's our responsibility. When my dad was coming up, if you cut the food, anywhere you cut the food, you got a whooping from that person. If they knew you not, you're just not going to let no stranger whoop on you. But by the time you got home, you got disciplined several times. And so we just got to get back to that way of being.
We in that notion of ain't nobody going to whoop my child but me.
Well, I don't even like to whoop my children. So
I do. I beat them.
Leave my children alone.
You know that.
Your children can't come. If I can't whoop your children can't come with me.
I have good children, but that's because they've gotten to where they've gotten. So my children. I think that it's a process because some people don't understand spanking, the appropriate way to spank, and it's a difference between beating somebody and spanking them. And you hear these people who sitting there with a 40 ounce telling you, "Oh yeah, I remember my mama used to beat me with brooms and extension cords, and look at how I turned out." And I'm sitting there like, "Is this the point you're making?" Like, no, not saying that a 40 ounce is what negates it, but it's like there's other options, and sometimes a kid does need a good old butt whooping, and there's other options.
I'm gonna say I remember there was a point in time when I got a bunch of whoopings with a bunch of different items, but I look at it now as,
did you get pistol up?
No, I didn't get pistol whipped.
He might be brooming.
But the one thing that I will say is I'm not an advocate for whoopings, because the one thing, especially when kids are little, they don't always understand what. And the one thing that I used to hate for adults to do was when I asked why, and they had such an attitude with me for me asking why. Can you explain to me why you're upset or what's wrong with this before you sit here and I see a belt coming from out of the north?
That's because a lot of us as a culture, we haven't been taught how to process our feelings and our emotions and how to communicate them. So when we feel powerless, instead of saying, you know what, right now you acting out, and I really, I tell my kids things like, I don't want to F you up. There's no manual to getting it right and being a parent. So right now in this moment, I don't want to F you up, and I don't know what to do. And you bigger than me, and it's me or you, and it ain't gonna be me.
But Shanta, you said an important piece. I don't want us to get too far off of it, but we don't process emotions well in our community, and I think that's a piece of the issue.
Yeah, and it's like when you're a mom doing it, like I didn't think I'd be a 2-time baby mama, with 2 baby daddies, who's a youth basketball coach, the other one who likes to rescue children with his horses and stuff like that. There's no manual to even getting that right. Even though people say, well, you should have saw the signs. Maybe. And what I can be responsible for is what I can be responsible for. I can be responsible for some of my little petty, hateful comments made. Like, your mama should have faked the headache the night you were conceived. I might say that the oldest one's son, dad, like when he asked for a bathing suit picture, like, your mama should have just faked the headache the night you were conceived. You don't even pay child support, dude. But that's community again. Who's going to hold them to account?
But that's not nice. That's divisive in the community itself.
The next time he says something, tell him, say, you the one your mama should have swallowed.
I done told him that too. I said, she.
Okay, back on track.
I said, we supposed to be on the sheets that night.
Back on track. Back on track. But Shantae.
But it's not nice. But what it is there's a reality to, I get tired of being the bigger person, because we're taught when you're the single mom, there has to be a reason why you're like, we got all of these reasons why I'm supposedly the one raising these kids by myself when they get let off the hook, right? And we're taught, don't say anything bad about them. Don't do this. There's all of these laws and rules for how I'm supposed to behave when I'm trying to teach 2 boys how to be grown men. And then whenever there's any lacking, then it comes back to me. Nobody's saying, why the hell are you out here coaching these kids in basketball and not taking care of your child? Why, like, I'll say something like, why you asking me for a bathing suit picture when you got your son's phone number? Call him. Don't even call me. And stop calling me.
Let me interject here. So Jamal Touré always says this, and I love this phrase. A mosquito won't teach an elephant how to be an elephant. A mosquito will teach an elephant how to be a mosquito. So I'm going to ask this question. Can a woman teach a man how to be a man? Or can you facilitate the skills to help them be an adult? So those are 2 different pieces. Carlton, what do you say to that?
That is. But some of these men,
let me get Carlton's feedback. Let Carlton jump in.
I'm gonna say that's not a two-sided coin. That's a difficult conversation because I know some women who have raised successful men by themselves. But then it also comes to the ones where they just couldn't do that. But it also comes to it, this statement, it takes a village to raise a child. So it's more so like I'll say I have kids that aren't mine, that they call me uncle. They're not biologically related to me, but I love them like it is. They part of my community. So if they call me,
Right.
they need advice, I take up their time with them. But it ultimately comes down to it as we should not view it as it's me by myself. It's I have to kind of step out and find my community to help me with this process. But people are so against letting other people help them now. They feel like it's shameful when I say when they got to come outside of their household and tell a tidbit of their business to get the help that they actually need.
But the shameful part comes in people trying to make you feel shameful. Like, I'm gonna give an example. Someone paid me. I performed a service. They're supposed to pay me. They said to me, well, since I know you over there struggling with them kids, because I love you, I'm giving you this money. I said, you ain't giving me nothing. You paying me. But a lot of times women will take that approach, and then I become the BI, in that situation, or I become ungrateful, or that's what those overly independent women. And really the reality is you paid me for a service that I performed as a businesswoman, and you're going to respect me being a businesswoman. I need you to understand that before I need that version of your love. And if me asking for help by saying, listen, I'm going through all of my invoices, you haven't paid me, and just because you're on the inside and you might know that I have a few struggles or whatever, that doesn't mean to try to chump me off on no money, because I'm gonna come at you like, nah, you're gonna give me my money because you paying me, not because you're giving me anything. If you feel that you need to gift it to me, you can keep it, and don't ask me to perform any services for you again in the future. Then I become too prideful. Then I become, so it's like all these stereotypes and stigmas. And this is what creates our community. Because you go back to this a lot, Robert, too, about the independent woman in the community. What about the independent woman who's just a businesswoman?
Well, and you said a second piece. We started with emotional well-being, but you said a second thing that we don't do well in our community now is respect one another. We have a major problem with respect, and I'll give you a great example. There was a time when, and I use my mom, for example. My mom, and you all have met her and all that. My mother's a very classy woman who comes from an era where if you weren't married to a man, women don't just fraternize, not even playing cards or hanging out. You don't do that. And so I remember one time I had her in assisted living. I didn't like it for a month. And they would seat her with men for dinner. And I said, don't you ever do that again, because that's not. So we've gotten away from women, and not necessarily this. I don't believe in gender roles, but there's something to be said about a woman, like you said, who has enough respect to know that I can't go out in public looking a certain way, to know that I have a responsibility at home. The same thing with men. There was a time when men didn't just hang out and have, and I'm not talking about anybody, because again, I lived a different life and a very different privileged life. But there was a time when, like, if I'm going to have a drink, I would put my drink in a cup and have it inside of a building and not hanging out in the streets and all that. So why have we gotten away? And that's just an example, one example of how we as a culture have not necessarily lost respect, but there's ways that we need to bring back a sense of respect within our community.
We need to normalize bougie again. I think what it is we've gotten so accustomed to rebelling against the system. The system says this is how you're supposed to behave. I know I do it all the time. The system says, as a woman, this is how you act. So sometimes I'll rebel against it. I told everyone I'm in medical school, and I said I think I'm the Lisa Bonet of my family, when I really could have been the Whitley Gilbert. And there's a lot of truth to that. And I think it's like we've gotten so accustomed to rebelling. Like they said, when I'm watching people who come from great privileged families, if you went to Windsor Forest and Savannah, 9 times out of 10, I'll say 8 times out of 10, you might have come from a slightly different upbringing as far as financial exposure, all of those things. And I get so tired of seeing classmates or hearing about classmates being on the crime watchers or just got out. Or I mean, even in my situation, I'm sitting here trying to get an expungement. And I got a whole uncle that's a founder of a fraternity at one of the major schools, and a mom who is the first Black woman to have a crew at Gulfstream. And I'm trying to get an expungement. So you make all of that make sense, right? And like I said, a lot of it is just rebellion. Like, if the system's going to say that this is what I can do or can't do, then I'm going to rebel against the system.
I mean, I like the aspect of what you said. We need to get back to bougie. But the thing about the Black community is, like I said, if you're at one level and then you elevate yourself to here, this person is here and they can't get to here. And you became, as they say, bougie, because quite frankly, everybody's going to say, I like to be bougie. I like to go to restaurants. I like restaurants where I got to put in a reservation because my service is better. I like to do things a certain way. The ratchet culture has taken over, and they keep propagating it through social media, music. A lot of some of the better music you will never hear on the radio because they want to propagate the ratchet music. We do need to get back to music. Because I quite agree, there was a point in time where there was a decorum that people had. Single women weren't going to hang out with married women like that. Men had a certain aesthetic that they had to have in public. I really want to go back to the 1920s, not the era what we had to deal with, but just the dressing and the style of things, how we carried ourselves.
But even in that, like the single women with the married women and the married men, like I have married men friends, and I have a hard time with having married men friends because every time, or let me rephrase, I have married men that I have as business partners. Like on paper, I am their business partner. And every time we meet, I'm like, hey, did you invite your wife along? Like, I know it has nothing to do with nothing, but I just feel it's the appropriate thing. Like, your wife's name ain't on this paperwork, but my name is on this paperwork. Or married men who I've created businesses for. Like, I have a long list of them. And I'm like, the next time when it's time to work on your government certifications, maybe we should do it with your wife. Just because I don't want nothing said. I don't want no smoke. Being a single woman, but there's challenges in being in business, being single woman or male, because I'm sure single males deal with the same thing when it's time for them to interact with females, and be in community. Like, how do I sit and take all of the knowledge that I've learned in corporate America, in insurance? I worked for Amica at some point. I worked in mergers and acquisitions, and I temped for President Paula Wallace of SCAT. But how do I take all of this information and carry it to our community, which happens to be a lot of male-dominated? It's a male-dominated industry when it comes to business and things, and have it so that I'm sharing the knowledge and information.
Wow, that I think a part of that, in my humble opinion, is making sure that we all understand our value and making sure that we all understand our gifts. I think when you tap into those gifts, you realize that we all bring a piece to a bigger puzzle. I don't know if y'all ever done a jigsaw puzzle, but we're all a piece of God's puzzle, in my opinion. It always baffles me, and y'all know this about me, that people always say, well, use your title, you're a doctor, carry it. No, that is a gift. I carry a gift of intellect. It's something God gave me, but I don't use that to hurt. I use it to do better. Same thing with white privilege. Folks who carry white privilege, white folk, need to use it for good, not to hurt. But oftentimes we'll see people who will say, use my title or call me this, or we saw in Charlottesville people who will use white supremacy to hurt. We're supposed to use our gifts. And what I mean by that, Carlton brings a gift. Shantae brings a gift. Robert brings a gift. If we utilize those gifts, come together as a community, how much power we would have. The same thing with economic power. We have an enormous economic impact, but we don't want to work together. We work very individualistic. I was in a conversation last night, y'all, with a cousin, and it was a great conversation. Have you all ever taken a twig and took a bunch of twigs and put it in a bundle, and then you try to break that bundle? It's hard to break, right? If you get one twig and pop it, it's easily popped. It'll pop easily. So think about if we were all these twigs that came together, how much power we would carry and leverage with our gifts and our economic authority.
Agree.
But how do we eliminate the jealousy? The jealousy and envy and greed is what takes over a lot in our community. And it's the one aspect that I truly don't like. But how do we get rid of the jealousy and the greed?
But you know what? What you focus on expands. You can't focus on the jealousy and the greed and the envy. What's for you is for you. I really believe that. What's for me is for me. Like, I'm sitting here, I have a $1,000 phone bill and I have 3 phone lines off. I have money to pay it, and 3 of my phones are off because I allowed someone to get 2 phones on my plan without ever paying the bill. They ain't never paid 1 bill and paid for iPhone 13s, right? And they're like, you gonna send me my shoes? I'm like, are you serious? No concern. I could get lost there. Instead, I went to a backup phone. And I'm meeting with 2 billionaires next week. One who told me, Shantae, I'm semi-retired. He worked on Jurassic Park and How to Train a Dragon. He did production work for Michael Jackson, big names. And he says to me, I'm semi-retired and there's only 2 people whose calls I'll take and you're one of them. Did I ask him for that $1,000 to pay the phone bill? No, because people think of community support as, oh, what was me? I need this, I need that. That's not it. What I asked for was, hey, is there anything that you have going on with your business where you need any of my services? We don't have to come at, like, everybody wants to act like, you know, like we just got to do better. We got to, and that respect conversation that you had earlier, I think the reason why we've lost respect as a community is because this generation now believes that respect is to be earned. I was taught respect is to be given. By the time that I've earned your respect, and since I've been giving you respect, I start off giving you respect and you come from respect is to be earned. By the time that you feel that I'm worthy, like I'm less than worthy to receive your respect back, I done checked out mentally, and now I don't think that you're worthy of my respect because I've been giving you respect and you've been being disrespectful. So we got to look at the way that we're communicating what's there for us.
Yeah, I think along those lines, I'm going to kind of pivot on this, but it's interesting to me how, and this is a very big issue nationwide, how we have people who should be leading our communities in the sense of public. I call myself a public leader. I don't call myself a politician. I'm a public leader. Because leadership is a very, very sacred thing to me. But we have people who identify as public leaders or politicians or what have you, pastors, whatever, and I'm about to go here, who can sell out. And what I mean by sell out is they allow dark money to influence them. And so, for example, you'll have a developer or a SCAD or whomever who has a large pocket. I'm just going to be real. You know, it's how hold on. It's how we got the new stadium in Atlanta. It's how the Georgia Dome got. You allowed those pastors to sell out. It's just what happens. We got to stop allowing dark money to infiltrate our communities and start doing it the right way. I always talk about this example, and I continue to talk about it. When Maynard Jackson and Andrew Young had enough sense to create a dynasty for our community in Atlanta. It's why we have Black millionaires in Atlanta. And now, not that we are going to go back to segregation, because I don't agree with that. But now I don't have to go across the street to ask for a resource. I can go right here to my own community and get a resource, right?
Well,
but when we have people that, But when we have people that's going to have for dark money and being to sell, we got a problem. How about this? Here's another approach. Why don't you take that dark money and apply it to these youth programs that we need to develop our youth instead of developing your pockets? So we got to get away from that. Stop being so individualistic.
I was just adding into for you to speak on it more. This Cop City being built. I didn't want you to keep going and step over the fact that we are, out of all the places in the U.S. that Cop City could be built, why would they build it here in Atlanta, the Black Mecca, with the youth, with this gun violence?
Tulsa. It's about to be another Tulsa. Atlanta is no longer going to be the Black Mecca. They are trying to change it. They despise the fact that Atlanta is the Black Mecca. Because Atlanta is a black town. Much like Savannah is a black town. It's run by Black people. A lot of the major positions are held by Black people, and they absolutely don't like it, which is how the shadow money comes in. Because we are, as they like to say, centuries in resources behind other people. So when the money comes up, they're like, oh, this is my come up. this is how I'm gonna get what I want. But I'm not thinking about the fact that everybody else who's about to take a downfall because I took this. It's all about self, like you say, stated earlier.
And going back to what you were saying too, Robert, about the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium got built where it got built also because of those fiber optic cables, which is what happened to Morris Brown. And if anyone doesn't understand about fiber optics, you can data mine, you can take pictures. Those judges who go to those sex shops with those young kids and all of that stuff is on those fiber optic cables. And they were buried underneath Morris Brown's campus and over there where that Mercedes-Benz Stadium was, because that was more of a move around those fiber optic cables.
That's disappointing. And the thing is, I guess I'm coming to the point of this is, especially in our community, if we go back to even slavery, you had, and if y'all watch the movie Life, you had the one man doing the gun line. I need y'all black folks to stop being the gun line man. Okay? Now, Grant, we're not here, it's one of the reasons why slavery, it's one of the reasons why slavery was so successful. We allowed it. We allow certain things. We got to stop allowing people to jerk us around and tell us what to do. Have some sense of confidence and respect and value. And when you step away from that, what happens is we become divided. When you're divided, you can conquer. People get so mad at the Republicans and Donald Trump, right? But what I will say about the Republicans is they don't allow you to just come in and infiltrate them that easy. It's one of the reasons why Donald Trump got the approval rating he has now, because they ain't gonna let you come in and infiltrate them and tell you what to do. Why can't we be the same way? We have just as much. We're actually a smarter group of folk. I'm just gonna be real with you. That's why I always tell people, and Shante help me say this all the time. We allow people that don't look like us to tell us that our children have behavior issues. In all actuality, our children are challenged, which means they're smart and they're reading above at a different age level. They're reading above level. They're performing above level. But if I'm not challenged, guess what I'm gonna do? Find something to do. But we allow people to tell us about us, and I'm not for that.
Can I share something I just learned? That's why I got so excited. Y'all know I love learning. Okay, so I just got my Trauma 2.0 certification last week too. And in it, we were talking about neuroplasticity, how the brain has the ability to repair itself. And how, this is what I learned. The term chemical imbalance, when we describe mental health and mental illness, we always say, oh, it's a chemical imbalance. That's how I've described it. And I'm someone that lives with mental illness, right? We always say chemical imbalance. There has never been any data or research to show that mental illness is a chemical imbalance. Prozac, it was a marketing tool of Prozac when Prozac came out. They said chemical imbalance, and so they pushed chemical imbalance to justify giving people Prozac. Because I was like, I took 9 pills. I'm down to 1. I took myself off those other 8. Remy Albatroy, the self-made billionaire that mentors me, he was like, you don't even need that stuff. He was in the hospital. And some people do need it. So I'm not advocating to take away your medicine. But what I'm saying is it's a chemical imbalance. That's what they say.
If I may, and Carlton will talk about this, I'm a big naturalist. I'm a huge naturalist. I'm going to pass this out to Carlton in a minute. We got to stop doing that too. Going back to values. I'm not a physician, nor am I a pharmacist, but I am going to say this. We put too much chemicals in our body. It hurts. I'm going to use it. It pisses me off that we got white males out here who can wear this label called pharmacists, give out chemicals, put in your body. But you go on the street, somebody give you crack cocaine. That's a chemical, but they go to jail.
For 30 plus years, spending the rest of their life.
That makes zero sense to me. But let me offer this as well. There are natural ways of healing. I'll give you a great example. My mother with no history. My mom lives with Alzheimer's. I took her off of all those medications. Why? Because one's going to trigger the next. You take blood pressure, it's going to trigger the next. It's going to trigger the next. It's going to trigger the next. So now you got 20 pills when all you had to do is eat right. But guess what? There's a thing called natural healing. I got my mother this thing called lion's mane. It is a mushroom. If you look it up, it's been really good for dementia and Alzheimer's patients. And I'm not seeing her get up and walk or talk any clearer, but I have seen a small difference in behavior and ability to communicate and do commands. So what I'm saying is we got to be very mindful. Stop allowing people that don't look like us to tell us how we work. We don't need all that stuff. But Carl, I want you to talk more about the natural healing because you're more in tune with it. And we got a lady right here in Savannah that he introduced me to. Heck, I'm all for it. But Carl, I'm going to pass out to you on the naturalist piece.
I mean, I quite agree. I love the natural medicine because it's not, because I have anxiety So my anxiety, when it gets bad, I drink tea. It's a tea that when I went to her, she gave me several different herbs. So like I took a mix of a couple of different until I got the correct concoction of what I liked, the feeling that I did. And then when I'm calm, and usually my sleep is a lot better. Because the one thing I tell people, while you're sleeping, if you wake up really, really tired after you've been asleep for a long time, it's because your mind is not resting while you're asleep. Your mind has to rest in order when you sleep to get when you get up for it to feel better. But it is so many herbs, so many different things, and a lot of them they outlaw. Like recently, I seen where the FDA was trying to outlaw sea moss. And actually, if you look up the benefits of sea moss, it really, really helps. Like I could just from the instance of when I started taking it a little bit, it made me feel a whole lot better. The digestion was better, circulation better, all of that. But for my anxiety, I'll give y'all a couple of examples, like a couple of herbs I use for my anxiety. Lavender, chamomile, and I recently tried blue lotus. Blue lotus is amazing, but it will make you lucid dream. That's probably the best part about it. It allows you to, when you're in your dream, you have a little bit more control. You wake up, you're like, well, my God, that's a very, very vivid dream. But those together and sit and drink tea. But you can also, if you don't want to drink, you like for the smokers, if you want to smoke it, you can smoke it too. But if you're gonna smoke it, add a little mullein and make sure you clean out your lungs too when you do it.
That's good information.
That's real. But you see what I mean? But we're not taught that. We're taught to put all these chemicals in our body. It was another point I had, and I forgot that quickly. But my thing is this: stop allowing people to don't look like us to tell us how we function. You can't tell me. I can't tell you how to function as a woman because I'm not a woman. I can't tell you what to do with your vagina because I don't have one. And that's the thing that irks me now. 1 year ago, the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. And you mean to tell me a panel of mostly men going to tell women what to do with their body and nobody saw something wrong with that? That blows my mind. So it's just like this here. You're not going to tell me as a black male how to be a black male. And it's the same thing. You're not going to tell me if you're a white male or a white woman. You're not going to tell me how to function as a black male because you don't know.
Well,
so it is what it is.
I believe that Roe versus Wade was even beyond that. It's also about the fact that in the last 20 years, women incarcerated has increased by 700%. So now you telling me not to have an abortion. If I have an abortion, through Planned Parenthood, who's the ones who turned us from being Republicans originally, because most black people were Republicans at some point. And it was around that time that they started talking about the feminist movement that we shifted. So you're going to tell me that if I do this with my body, now you're going to incarcerate me. But the white man and the white woman, because 75% of all brown and black women are on Medicaid. That means that most, like in looking at the statistics, or 75% of the Medicaid recipients are brown or black women. And they felt that was better because it helped with the fetal mortality rate, because a lot of brown and black women were getting killed while delivering and giving birth because we don't consent to surveys. And that's because they usually torture us and do illegal things to be able to get us to survey or to comply. But anyways, but the whole point is white people go to private doctors. When you go to a private doctor, they don't have to report half of this stuff. So if you're not reporting that I came in for an abortion because I went to a private doctor, the statistics are going to look different. It's going to look like brown and black people are the ones getting these abortions. And it's also going to look like us filling up these jails. And it's also going to look like baby brokers coming in asking us, if you sell me that baby that you didn't abort, I'll get you out of prison a little earlier. It's the same thing. It's slavery.
Yeah.
No matter how you shape it. Roe versus Wade is bananas. All of it is bananas. But it's...
We just had a comment. I don't want to get too far off. Has mainstream media contributed to this foolishness? And the answer is yes. I'll use the music industry, for example. Why is it that our music has to have certain things before it's published? Why does it have to have the sensationalism? Why do our black females have to be on the videos with their bodies hanging out, body parts hanging out, and looking all kind of foolish ways before we get attention? Why is it that our black men, in order for them to get any kind of notoriety, they got to be dressed and drag on the screen before they can get any sense of real attention? Why is it that we got to be marginalized yet again to get the attention that we already deserve? Because at the end of the day, last I looked, we invented everything in this country. So let me get to this point. We've got to stop allowing people to bastardize our value and our what we bring to the table. And I think that starts with not only just the music, but a number of things that we allow people to do. That's one of the reasons why with Tyler Perry, people get so mad at Tyler Perry because of his wealth and his growth. We got to start supporting people like that. And other small businesses. I mean, we do ourselves dirty, but we've got to start developing this framework of expectation that allows us to work within our community and to grow things that we already have in place.
I want y'all to give Tyler Perry his credit for one thing that I know that he did do for the black community, because where he built the stadium, and I believe it raised the property value around us. So he went and he paid the property taxes for those low income people around them for like years to come, so that they would not have to worry about it, because he knew what would happen once they got over there. So I want y'all to give him a round. He got to get a round of applause today. So he does do a lot. He hires a lot of black actors.
Right.
He might put some bad wigs on them when he put them in the movie.
That's because he paying over so much.
But he do look out for the community when it comes to the black actors. But when you said something earlier about women in their bodies, and I want to know, it was a historical figure. His name was, I can't remember. I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head, but I can't remember. But his name was J. Marion Sims. He was the father of modern gynecology. He was the one who, during slavery time, experimented on black women to learn about it so that women could progress so much now. A lot of the stuff that we go through now in our community, when it comes to stuff like that, they experimented us. Let's think about back to the Tuskegee experiment. Think about to the AIDS epidemic. You can't tell me that you created something and you didn't have a cure for it when you created, just in case it affected the wrong somebody that you know and you don't want them to suffer.
Yep. COVID.
Ooh. Well, you know one thing, I'm glad you said that. That was my point earlier.
Just joking. Next topic.
No, you can't.
Next
you gotta be careful. Right, but no, what I'm saying is there are cures for a lot of this stuff out here, and HIV/AIDS, cancer, all that. First of all, cancer exists in our community because of the foods that we eat, and the foods that we have overly been filled with all these dyes and this these preservatives and all this foolishness.
Beatles.
But yet matter again, when we go to these discount stores, it's even more stuff in it. It's the reason why our body shapes. We're not supposed to eat these steroids these cows eat. We're not supposed to eat this stuff that these animals eat. But when we eat it, when they eat, think about it. You are what you eat. When you put that cow on your plate that was not farm raised, but was raised with all these chemicals and dyes and foolishness, you gonna end up looking like that cow. I mean, it is what it is. We're not supposed to be. Let me tell you something. We allow people again to tell us that, and we step away from community when we don't realize we are the community. That's the big point here. We are the community.
But look at that.
You're not gonna tell me how to be in my community.
I was talking about Skittles because if you go through, I'm gonna say this quick point, Carlton. If you look at the Food and Drug Administration and you look at what's regulated for other countries and you look at what's regulated for the U.S., you'll find a lot of foods that we eat every day that they do not allow into other countries. Bread, Skittles, because the red dye is actually the color from beetles being chopped up. Little things like that. And I'm guilty. I still eat my Skittles, knowing I'm eating beetles. But in other countries, insects are delicatessen. So, anyways, just wanted to share that.
I mean, I love going to other countries and eating their food, because like eating some of the same foods we eat here versus we eat in other countries is completely the same. Fruits that you get out the store are completely different. We went to Panama last year. My favorite thing to eat while I was down there was pineapple. And most of the time our pineapples, when they turn yellow, they're bad and we won't eat them. But when their pineapples are ripe down there, they're yellow, they're golden yellow, and they were so much sweeter and so much better. The food tasted pure, and I was like, why I eat like this back home? And I get great food down here. Why can't I get this back at home? But another aspect of it is, it depends on where you live at to get quality food. You literally have to go to a more predominant area, which you shouldn't have to get better quality food. And it can be the exact same grocery store, because versus, I'll give you an example, the red and white over there, it's in Savannah, that's over there off of Geechee Road, versus the red and white that's in Havisham. Same store, different products, because it's
Right.
based they
Right.
serve it based off the area where you serve it.
But I'm glad you said that. As a good friend of mine, she uses the term food apartheid, which I've holistically believe in. I would love to see the day where we have more. Everything is around education. I'm an educator by trade, but I would love to see the day where we do more education, not just around food, but around voting, around a lot of things in our community. Because when you're not educated on a subject, as you all are and myself, you tend not to understand what's going on. So, for example, eating red meat. Eating red meat at a high level is going to really disproportionately make you less likely to live a long time. You may not want to live a long time, not my business, but eating a lot of red meat is not good. Having fresh fruit, fresh organic fruit in our communities. Why can't we have farmers markets? Why can't we have black farmers markets instead of having our farmers sell out the truck on the corner? We can do that. And somebody the other night, I think it was on the Rabble, said, well, isn't that a little, somehow to the extent of, isn't that a little progressive or aggressive or whatever they want to use? But guess what? The other culture's been doing it for years. Why can't we? Why can't we do something all black and be okay with it? Let me ask y'all this question. Why is it always a step back when somebody says let's have an all black thing? Or let's have an all black cast on a news show or whatever. Why can't we have a black man lead the Wheel of Fortune on Jeopardy? People get what's wrong with that?
Harriet Tubman said it. Freed thousands of slaves, could have freed hundreds of slaves, could have freed thousands more had they known they were slaves. I didn't always know I was a slave when I was being a slave. And red meat, my grandparents had a farm. So when you look at red meat, a lot of that was dyes and chemicals to keep it that color. That's why after 5 days it starts turning a little brownish and the red starts coming out, and they have that little packet underneath to keep the color in there. So when you start looking at a lot of your food, not just your beef, and Oprah caught a lot of slack for that, talking about beef. She had to go against the whole cattle industry. So when you look at stuff like that, that should say something. If you ever go to the Epcot Center, back after Obama, there's a tour ride. I forgot what it's called, but you get in this little boat and they take you all around, and you see the hybrid fruits and vegetables and the hybrid seafood, where it's in tanks, where they're being basically created through you see watermelon this big, it's a plug, it plugs in and it's giving it natural lighting. That's a plug-in light. So even with the organic, like this stuff that doesn't have seeds, that's not natural. We got to even look at what we consider to be organic before we get on a bandwagon just because another culture is doing it. They don't always have the right answer. They came to us for the answers. Before soul food, soul food didn't even seem to be soul food. That was their leftovers that they didn't want to eat. And we decided to make it into a meal. And now it's the big thing to be in the South. All of these nutritional values to some yams.
Do you know how much, like versus, the one I don't eat them, but a pinnacle of the black community at Thanksgiving is what chitterlings. And chitterlings used to be chitterlings.
Basically boo strips.
No, you gotta clean them the right way. When my mama cook them and her friends, I eat them, but you gotta clean them the right way. You gotta pull it down and wash them and gotta clean them.
I'll do it. I guess somebody else do it.
But they used to be really, really cheap to get chitterlings, and they used to love them. And now you go in the grocery store and you try and buy chitterlings, you be like, well, what then happened? Cultural appropriation.
This is it. Started selling them for $30.
Yeah, I'm good on that. But I will say this. My granddaddy, my mama's from Morgan County, Madison, Georgia. My granddad used to cook coon, squirrel, any little thing that could crawl. I'm good, bro. I'm good. Are we supposed to be eating that stuff, y'all? For real now? Come on.
If you were stranded and left if you were out in, see, the thing is, if you were left out, my grandparents had a farm and there were no pesticides. I mean, a real farm with the truck, with the
little stuff,
the John Deere, and the cornfields taller than you, and that's the stuff that we ate. But the thing is, there were no pesticides. It was clean food. It was the cabbage were canned to become sauerkraut. from the garden that was near the house. Then there was another acre that you went out before you got to the big gardens that required the John Deere tractors. So all of that, like my father and I, we would go up north in Michigan and go ice fishing and catch these big salmon. But to catch fish, you had to have alligator or you had to have rattlesnake tail to catch the king salmons with the ice fishing. So that's what they sold at the bait shops. So then you have people like, I eat fish, but I don't eat. Well, that fish ate that alligator, and that alligator thing seems edible to me. I know I like me a good gator tail.
Oh Lord.
I
Oh
mean,
my goodness.
you gotta think versus the farm raised stuff versus the woodland creatures. They eat a lot more natural stuff. I actually had a conversation with somebody at work about coon because they was like, we was talking about the city coons. I was like, I'm not eating that. They was like, wow. I was like, I eat coon, but I was like, I'm not eating that. Do you not know they eat anything? They in the city. I'm not eating that. I say, we go to the country. I say, who gonna eat that? They be digging in trash cans, all type of stuff. Coons in the country don't do all of that, and they generally stay away from people. Them coons will walk right in front of you like you sitting in my seat.
Like a New York rat.
But that's how you get your allergies too. Like Imani taught me this, Robert. When you get sick or something like that, like with me living in Atlanta, I need to have localized honey. That wouldn't be the same honey that you have in Savannah.
Yes.
So just going in the store and buying honey and adding to your tea isn't going to do anything. You have to have localized honey. And I wanted to say this real quick because I said it earlier, and I stepped over it when you were talking about us being educated and sharing more knowledge. I believe that government contracts is almost the next best thing to reparations. And if I set up someone's company, I always tell them I will help you set up your government contracts. At one point, around the PPP time, I'm not going to say anything else. You could go to the SBA site, put in all your information, and it spit out all of the government contracts that you basically qualify for. Now you got to go to an individual site per qualification, but they do a minimum of $25,000 as a set aside just for being Black, just for being a veteran, just for being disabled. And before it goes public, they might have the Department of Defense or something might have a contract for $20 million, and they're looking for a Black business that's disabled to be able to run this janitorial company. And we don't know anything about it just because we haven't done some free certifications. So I just want to throw that in there.
No, I think to your point too, one of the reasons why I want to, and this is not only, I'm running for city council, but the best is yet to come. I'll leave it there. But it's one of the reasons why I'm running for council is that we have what was called in the city of Savannah, at least, legacy contracts. And what legacy contracts means is if you have been a contractor, you will pretty much get more contracts. Well, the problem with that is, at least my problem and a professional problem is, you don't get to see enough minority women businesses that get those contracts. And so we've got to increase that. We got to be competitive, because what I don't like to see is when we get left out of the conversation, particularly Black businesses, it's not reparations that they're not getting. It's not that conversation, but it is, again, we're economically pulled back, not allowed to participate equally. And then guess what happens if I do get the contract? What I've seen and heard from contractors is now I got the contract, but now they're going to raise the bar even more. So now I lose out. So we've got to make sure that economically we're in the conversation, because if you're not on the menu, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I want to be at the table so I can bring you all to the table.
Yeah, no, I sit at the table usually, and I don't stop bringing people to the table because people like to replace me at my own table and try to give me a paper plate, and we ain't doing that. And so I say that to say, I think as well,
ain't nothing wrong with a paper plate.
Understanding that minority is also a white woman in certain businesses.
Yeah, you're right.
So the difference in our cultures is a white woman and a white man will get a divorce and they'll keep their business going. We got to get through this pettiness and remember to be about our Father's business and our children's business and legacy building. If you and your husband can't make it work, your baby daddy, whomever, build that business, put it in a trust, and leave some stuff behind. I was with my banker all this morning, and I was like, Robert, I don't think I can make the show because I'm not even.
I'll make it because I want to get up off there.
He is like, you better go comb your hair and get on camera.
Yeah, No, I got you.
So
So
I'm
y'all,
glad that I was
I,
there to
I,
share
I,
this information.
I
Thank
think
you,
I,
Robert.
no, I think our producer's about to close us out, but let's do our final comments and let's try to keep them at 1 minute because I think our producer's ready. All right, Carlton, we will start with you.
Well, the one thing I'm gonna say, I was gonna talk about this before we got off, but it's a statement that I tell all the younger guys that I know, especially the ones that I work with, because they just work. They don't know what they want to do. They don't have knowledge. Your net worth is only as big as your net worth. So you genuinely have to collaborate and communicate with people to learn stuff. But most of them are ashamed to say that they like this and they like that because they get judged for it. And being in the Black community and getting judged is harsh. But it was fun being on here with y'all today. I look forward to next Saturday.
All right, Ms. Shantae.
I'm gonna say something controversial. Go figure. To disagree with both of y'all. Your net worth is as big as your self-esteem. So don't lower yourself into low self-esteem in humbling yourself. It's okay to be great. It's okay to know things. It's okay to share that knowledge. We as a community are strengthened when we share our knowledge. Thank you for having me on the show, Robert.
Well, you're co-host, so you're here. We'll be back next Saturday, you all, on our Black Media Network. This is the Watch Dawgs, and we are tuning off. So, producer, hopefully you're by the controls. You can take us out.
Like this.